This event happened about 8 years ago, when they were still in their teens and were in the training period before debuting. The argument started when Jimin advised Jungkook about his disrespectful attitude towards the young, older members. Jungkook, who felt that his pride was compromised, refused the advice, which then triggered tension between them. Jimin was angry and left the training room, while Jungkook also left without a clear purpose. Not knowing where to go, Jungkook got lost. Feeling worried, Jimin receives a phone call from Jungkook, who cries and claims not to know where he is. Jimin told him to take a taxi back to the dormitory. Arriving at the hostel, Jimin waited outside despite the heavy rain. When Jungkook arrives, they both hug and apologize to each other for the incident. The next day, Jungkook's eyes were swollen from crying all night. This incident shows how strong the bond of brotherhood is between BTS members, who are able to overcome internal conflicts and still support each other as a family. This was no ordinary teenage fight. Jimin, as one of the youngs in the group, felt responsible for mentoring Jungkook, who was then the maknae, youngest member. However, Jimin's way of conveying that he was still learning to be a leader might have seemed too harsh to Jungkook, who was still very young and sensitive. When Jungkook escapes from the dorm and gets lost, it's an emotional turning point that illustrates how fragile yet sincere their relationship is. Jimin, who was previously angry, instantly turned anxious and attentive. He doesn't care about the rain, standing outside the dorm to welcome Jungkook back in tears. Several years after the incident, both Jimin and Jungkook discussed the moment in BTS broadcasts and content such as BTS Festa or Bangtan Bomb. Even Jin, the oldest member, called the incident like a Korean drama because of his heartwarming and intense emotions. They both admitted that the quarrel actually made them closer and understand each other. Jungkook learns to value input from others more, while Jimin realizes the importance of conveying criticism in a more empathetic way. Now, Jimin and Jungkook's relationship is known to be very close. Fans often refer to them by the nickname Jungkook, and their moments together are always warmly welcomed because they look so sincere and support each other. The close friendship between BTS members doesn't always go smoothly. In one of the rarely discussed emotional moments, it was revealed that Jungkook and Jimin had been involved in a heated argument during their early days as trainees. In an interview in BTS Festa content, the two openly recounted the conflict that occurred about 8 years ago. At that time, Jimin reprimanded Jungkook for his disrespectful attitude towards the Hyungsman. Jungkook, who was a shy teenager at the time, felt inadequate and ran away from the dorm without a purpose. To his surprise, Jungkook was lost and crying because he didn't know where to go. He finally called Jimin while sobbing. Even though he was angry, Jimin immediately forgot his emotions and told Jungkook to take a taxi home, while waiting outside the dorm in heavy rain conditions. This dramatic moment was so memorable that Jin, the oldest member of BTS, called it like a Korean drama. When Jungkook arrived at the dorm, they hugged and cried for each other, showing how deep their bond was despite their disagreements. The next day, Jungkook's eyes looked swollen from crying all night. Since then, the two have become closer and closer to each other. It was a difficult time, but now we can laugh when we remember him, Jimin said in one of the interview footage. This story is proof that even the strongest relationships can weather the storm and come out more solid than ever. Now, Jungkook has become one of the most beloved duos by fans, thanks to their unwavering closeness. The fight between Jungkook and Jimin was not just a teenage drama, but a turning point that shaped their chemistry until now. Both learned a lot from the incident, not only about holding back emotions, but also about understanding each other more deeply. After that tearful night, their relationship changed. Jungkook began to be more open and bold in expressing his feelings. Meanwhile, Jimin, who is known to be very concerned about other members, became more careful in expressing criticism. If you think about it now, we are just two young people who are confused and tired. But we learned from that, Jimin revealed in the BTS Memories content trailer. Jungkook added, "I always remember that night. And from that moment on, I felt Jimin Hyung like my own older brother." The fans' pick, True Brotherhood. The story went viral again as fans unearthed the moment and shared it on social media. Many soldiers could not resist Haru, especially since Jungkook and Jimin are now known as one of the closest duos in BTS. Netizens' comments were full of praise and emotion. Imagine a little boy alone, lost, and finally embraced by the rain. Urged. If it were not for real brothers, it would not have been possible to make such a close peace. Jungkook is the definition of a love-hate relationship that ends happily. Now Jimin and Jungkook's intimate moments are always awaited by fans both on stage, behind the scenes, and when they live together. From quarrels to hugs, from rain to warmth, their stories deserve to be immortalized in the history of BTS. The altercation that saw Jungkook and Jimin cry in the rain has now become part of the long history of BTS, a group not only known for their music and performances, but also for their strong interpersonal relationships. Now, both Jimin and Jungkook have grown into mature and emotionally stable personalities. In various interviews, the two never hesitate to show affection for each other. From warm backstage hugs, small jokes in the middle of a busy schedule, to emotional support when one feels down, it all shows that their closeness is not made up. For ARMY, this story is not just drama or conflict, but a real picture that true brotherhood is formed not because they never fight, but because they are able to forgive each other and grow together. Now, Jungkook is not just a visual duo, vocals, or fan service alone. They are a symbol of struggle, sincerity, and the strength of bonds capable of weathering any storm. And maybe, as Jin said, their relationship is like a Korean drama. But the difference, it's real. After that tearful rainy night, changes began to be felt. The next morning, Jungkook came to the rehearsal room earlier than usual. His eyes were still puffy, but there was a new determination on his face. Jimin, who was usually indifferent when the training began, that day quietly threw a small smile. No words but understanding. The days after, they started talking more about music, dreams, even fear. The previously shy Jungkook begins to more actively greet the Hyungs, and Jimin, who used to be harsh in his criticism, begins to learn to be a good listener. Since that incident, I feel that I can entrust my feelings to Jim and Hyung. I have a place to go home, Jungkook said in a BTS documentary. Jungkook on stage, time flies. They debut. They grow. However, the vestiges of that moment remain alive. Seen in their arms after a concert, in sincere glances on stage, or as they flirt with each other on a live broadcast. In fact, when the two released solo songs, fans could feel how their maturity was rooted in a long emotional journey. Jimin once said, "Jungkook is not just dancing. She's part of my life." And Jungkook? He once innocently said in the middle of a live broadcast, "If Jim and Hyung hadn't been there that night, maybe I wouldn't have stayed in BTS." Finally, the story of quarrels and rain that once made their relationship crack. Now it is a strong foundation that forms Jungkook as it is today. Not perfect but real. Not conflict-free but understanding. True friendships aren't formed on stage. They're formed behind the scenes, on cold nights full of tears and the courage to come back. And that's where Jungkook's story became a legend in the hearts of the ARMY.